During the 19th and early 20th centuries, Albany in Western Australia saw the introduction of a variety of exotic trees, including date palms. We can see that this offers us an insight into the broader patterns of migration, interaction and cultural exchange that shaped early settlements of Western Australia. As I became interested in discovering the origins of the date palms around my town of Albany, I discovered an unexpected connection with cameleers and camels. Prior to the 1840s, it was difficult for Europeans to reach the centre of Australia, so it was suggested that camels and their handlers be shipped in to carry supplies to the goldfields and pastoral stations. Albany's history often focused on maritime trade, shipping, whaling, military activity and European settlement rather than inland transport routes where camels were often used. The relative absence of camels and cameleers from Albany's histories reflects broader patterns in which the contributions of non-European transport workers were often overlooked. Although often absent from traditional pioneer histories, the Afghan Cameleers made a significant contribution to the development of Western Australia. Historians are increasingly acknowledging the important role of the Afghan Cameleers in Australia's development. Thankfully, what was once a neglected part of history is now receiving greater attention through research, museums, heritage projects and community education. Between 1860 and 1920s, thousands of camels and hundreds of cameleers, often from Baluchistan, India, Turkey and Egypt, played a key role in building vital infrastructure throughout Australia's harsh interior. Maori in South Australia is the historic heartland of Australia's Afghan Cameleers. So from here we can see that camels and Afghan cameleers were the lifeline of the 3,000-kilometre Australian overland telegraph line between 1870 and 1872. Named in honour of these Afghan cameleers, the Ghan train commemorates the brave, determined and resilient men who helped shape Australia's outback history. The cameleers, usually walking beside their laden camels, were instrumental in building the overland telegraph. Camel stations were set up in Coolgardie, Geraldton, Kew and Mullawa during the gold rush. Between 1870 and 1920, as many as 20,000 camels and up to 4,000 Afghan cameleers came to Australia to support expeditions, mining activity and the construction of infrastructure across the country's dry interior. Camels were especially valuable because they needed far less water than horses or bullocks. This allowed them to travel through country where other working animals likely would have perished. Camel transport reached its peak in Western Australia during the 1890s, when it became the lifeline for prospectors and isolated settlements. They carried food, water and essential supplies across long distances. They moved mining equipment and heavy goods into remote areas and supported the growth of Western Australia's mining economy. Around 1893, brothers Faiz and Taj Muhammad arrived from South Australia to Western Australia, bringing 3 steamers of camels from Adelaide and 2 from India. The brothers hoped to capitalise on the growing demand for transportation across large inland stretches of WA. The Mahomet brothers set up camel stations and shops. Ships started arriving in Albany port. One historical shipment of 58 camels arrived in Albany in September 1894 on the steamship SS Yeoman. By the mid-1890s, more than 4,500 camels operated across WA. The camel trains moved food, water, mining machinery and heavy equipment across soft sand dunes from coastal hubs like Albany to desert boom towns like Coolgardie, Kalgoorlie, Menzies and Leonora. The Afghan Cameleers came by ship from a wide range that included present-day Afghanistan, Pakistan, India and parts of Iran, and areas of the former Ottoman Empire. After arriving in a foreign country, the cameleers faced extremely difficult lives. Many had left their homelands and families in the hope of building a better future in Australia. Because of their religion, their faith, customs, traditional dress, and the way of life, many settlers ostracised them. The cameleers were then forced to establish basic garn towns on the edges of settlements. There they lived in tents and humpies, separated from white society and often denied equal opportunities. Despite the hardships they endured, cameleers played a vital role in opening inland Australia and supporting remote communities. Camels were widely used to carry wool from outback stations to railheads and port later on. So as we come to the end of this story, we return to where it all began, with the date palms. At Patrick Taylor Cottage Museum in Albany, a very tall date palm was planted in 1914 by a Taylor descendant to commemorate the men from Albany and surrounding districts who served in the Great War. The date palms will continue to grow as quiet witness to their history in Albany's connection with the Middle East through the Anzac story and later memorial traditions. We remember the Afghan Cameleers. Their legacy remains woven into the story of Western Australia.